What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Evolve Your Brand podcast. I'm your host, Dave Gold, CEO and head coach at the Business Growth Brotherhood. But today on the Evolve Your Brand podcast, we've got Andreas Budiman. Am I saying that right?
Yes, correct. Andreas Budiman.
Andreas Budiman. He is from Malaysia, and he is a sales outreach coach who I've been following closely because I believe that you perhaps need a sales outreach coach in your business today. So it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Hey, thank you, Dave. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.
Well, why don't you give everyone like a little bit of a background? Like, how did you get into sales and outreach, and why are you so passionate about this subject?
Yeah, sure. So it was starting basically. I was born in Indonesia. So, Indonesia is a third world country and it's kind of like not having a very great life. It's like an okay life. But then I never be suddenly, I never wake up and want to be successful and suddenly want to become a coach. There's never been in my mind before. But all my life, it was really all about starting to learn about how to design, going to the school, the old methodology of schools and graduated to kind of like looking around the job and how it works in the marketplace, right? So from there, I was having my dream to kind of work abroad. Back then, my dream was just working in Singapore. That's it, to start earning the job salary and wages, right? But then I met someone in my life, which is back then was my girlfriend, and now is my wife. And she actually inspired me to do more and be more. So that time also the first time I met my first mentor in Singapore. So I went to Singapore. It was basically blank with just like $10 in my pocket and came to Singapore just to look for a job, like design job, because my background in Indonesia was from design, like architecture, interior design. So I was looking for that job and I got one job in Singapore, right? And it was so good, so lucky that I got it, and I only make like 1 or 2K per month. It's like pretty low income. But then after that, I met my girlfriend, now is my wife, and I met my mentor. That my mentor is start open my eyes into the new world that is called sales. And that is like my pivot point when I met her. That at the same time, my back then was my girlfriend that she wasn't really agree that I go into sales because sales is tough, right? You gotta get commission to get a good life, and it's not pretty consistent up and downs with the inbound leads and all the things. So I was really hesitant as well because she was challenging me back then, and she was telling me that if you don't make it to the consistent income and you didn't make the good stable income back then she was going to leave me. So I was like
And
very
your mentor was Dan Locke.
yeah. And
Your mentor
second
was Dan
mentor,
Locke at the time. And
my first mentor was not. It was from Singapore. There's a lady that teaching me about sales. My
ah,
second mentor is Dan Locke. That's where I
okay.
start to do like remote selling from there.
And so what happened? So obviously your now wife, she didn't leave you. So, was there one call that changed it all where like everything clicked?
No, exactly. I was really making good money, but it was, inbound it's never been consistent. Like that's like literally what the life is about, right? It is when you get a good marketing, good flow, then you have like a very high influx in your marketing side, then you get a lot of good calendars booking, cost per lead is very cheap. You get good inbound leads, right? As a closer. Then when the marketing is not right, nothing is working. Then your income is dependent on what? On the marketing, right? That's where the pivot point when I was seeing like how to get great income consistently. There's not a way than you being proactive, reaching out, sales outreach, and you're gonna make that income. So from there, I found one strategy, and I was really leveraging a lot of good leads from because it was Dan, right? And I know he has a lot of good leads there. And you were actually reaching out to a lot of people, like around 1 million leads. So I got like time to play around what is the best outreach ways to that. So that's the pivot point when I know sales is all about outreach and how we proactively reaching out to other people. That's where actually the the strategy that I know it actually makes you great income and it's consistent rather than depending yourself in inbound, right? Because like I mentioned, inbound is depending on the marketing side, always up and downs, and you cannot really predict it.
or maybe it is predictable once you've got an outbound system that works.
Yes.
Because if you have good marketing, but you don't know how to reach out to people and get them onto a call and, enroll them into an offer that actually supports them and serves them, then your marketing is more of a hobby. It's more of a, you know, like social validation, like seeking social proof and validation than actually having a business. And a
Yes.
lot of guys out there are looking at social media as a business when really for them it's more of a hobby. And they're in denial about that.
Yes.
And the reason why it's a hobby is because they don't make any money. And the reason why they don't make any money is because they don't know how to sell.
Yes.
And a lot of guys are also in denial that they're good at sales.
Yes.
They
That's what
think
you
that they're
say.
really good at sales.
Yeah, that's what you say exactly. When you know that you can combine that inbound with the right outreach strategy, it makes more predictable. It's make more consistent because you're not only relying the traffic source only on one way, right? In the marketing way. Marketing is all about testing, and you know it. Reading the data, take a look at the data, retesting it. Unless you have tons of budget to kind of play around, you always be struggling to chase that what is working right now, right? And it's always up and down. It's like the platform change, Meta has a new algorithm, and you always chasing that, right? But when you have the right outreach strategy, the right team that doing the outreach, the outbound, it gives supplementary, like complementary each other in the inbound and outbound. So you are not leaving leaving your income in just one source of just inbound, Because interesting enough, I know a company that basically they are teaching Amazon like how to sell Amazon in the course, and it was like 5.5K per course, and they really relying on the inbound. So they scale their marketing to $300 million in 3 years. Then they hire 85 closers with zero sellers, with zero outbound appointment setters, and nothing. It's just all pure inbound. What happened after 3 years? Everything went down. Like meta changed, the course was broken, like all the things were, and they fired 80 closers, left only five closers, and they start hiring a lot of sellers in. But it's kind of like a bit too late. And now they deficit $450 million. That's true story. And one of the closer that working there now become one of my seller that I was working together here. So
You
that's why
make a
I know
good
that
point where
story.
you say now it's too late, and a lot of guys still think that they have time. They still think that, oh yeah, like I just got started, like it's only been 1 month, I still got time, or I just started working with this new coach, or, you know, I still got this program that I haven't gone through. Like there's still time. There's still time left. And on the one hand, I think that they're right. There is some time left, but possibly not the time that they expect, and
Yes.
that they might miss out on the opportunity if they don't understand the game.
Yes.
And it's just like if you don't understand the game of dating, you're going to be left behind and you're going to get the lowest hanging fruit. Or
Yeah.
if you don't understand the game of crypto or NFTs, you're going to get rug pulled and you're going to lose all your money. Well,
Yes.
if you don't understand the game of sales, you're not going to be able to win in business. And, you've talked a lot about the things that it takes to be successful in sales as a coach or a consultant or an agency owner. So I'm wondering, like, what would you say are the top five things that you're looking for in someone who has potential to be great in sales?
Yes. Great questions, Dave. Thank you for asking that. So there are actually not only five, there are I think about 85 factors to kind of look at someone. But if you kind of want to narrow it down to top five, I think the number one is really about their attitude, like how that you see sales about, right? And there's a lot of mistakes that a lot of salespeople make, which is when when let's say you're a business owner and you want to hire someone, the first thing you gotta look at is that do they believe in the product itself, right? Like a lot of salespeople, they just don't care what the product is. As long as I make money, then I'm happy, right? But they don't care about the product. How can you sell that product? It's just like I want to marry someone that I don't believe that I can marry the person, right? So the first thing you gotta look at is really about their attitude and their belief. Are they really aligned with the mission of what you're selling exactly, right? Because especially as a coach or as a consultant, that maybe you are selling something, that product, if you not having alignment with that attitude or belief with the salesperson, that working together is just 100% is going to fail. Doesn't matter how good the person is, because there's no belief in there, right? That's number one. Number two, I think it's about speed. It's about speed, because outreach, proactiveness, and speed, right? You don't have the speed, then you lose the game. Like that's exactly how that you mentioned about time just now. It's very, very critical, because when you don't have speed and you're just saying, I still have time. Like imagine if the leads come into your ecosystem and they're just staying there for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. They're not only getting colder, they just go away with their competitors already. They're already gone with someone else, or they just lost interest over time. Like we fail to serve them basically, right? This number two is the speed. How fast it responds to you, how fast that they can get back to you. It shows their commitment, right? So it leads to number three is their commitment. Are they committed enough to do the work? Because some people, they say that they committed enough, but eventually what they say and what they do is always different. So that's why I always saying that I don't really care what you're saying, but I always want to watch what you're doing, because those are two different things. And how that you say things, how that you do things, it doesn't mean they collaborate well, right? So number three is the commitment itself. Number four is all about how that the vision of the person. If the person only looking at short-term game and they cannot see the long game vision, they always aim for one call close. They always aim for the first lead that come in, I gotta close that lead, and that's it, right? While the first rule in outreach is all about nurturing. How can you manage that relationship, expanding that network, putting it into the pipeline, right? Without all of those, then you fail to be a great salesperson. You just keep coming for that new leads that more expensive, and they just running away from you, right? That's number four. Number five is all about how that you are looking at the other person perspective. So I always do like a very easy diffuse test when I was talking with a salesperson, and I want to see how the salesperson have empathy on what I'm saying. So if I'm saying something like, the sales is kind of pretty not so good recently, and I want to see how that the salesperson will say, like what are they going to say, like, oh really, what exactly that's happening there, or they just kind of like saying, oh that's too bad, right? So how that the person has other perspective, how is that other person have that empathy looking at the things, the situation, it will determine how good the salesperson is. Because without the empathy, you cannot ask great questions. You cannot ask the right question at the right time to reveal what the other person exactly thinking about things, right? So number five is really empathy. I think that's the top five, if I would say. But of course, there are other factors, other things that we cannot see. Those five is the first five things that I see myself as determining of a good salesperson, a great salesperson that willing to do outreach to get to the next game of the sales that they can be.
Have you read The Prosperous Coach?
No, prosperous coach. What is that?
Steve Chandler, Rich Litvin.
No, never read that before.
Something that stands out to me from that book and their philosophy, um, which is kind of a fan favorite of one of my former mentors, is the concept of commitment in coaching. And it's like, yeah, maybe you're not a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant, but you can still get a commitment from that other person. And if you don't get that commitment, maybe you shouldn't have the expectation that they're going to follow through on their word.
Yes.
Maybe you shouldn't create unrealistic expectations that they're actually committed to something just because they paid money or just because they said they were going to do something,
Yes.
right? And so there's a lot of micro actions that we can take to get that commitment, right? It can be from literally them committing to the call or doing something on the call or writing you a letter or whatever it may be. There's a series of commitments that you can create that will increase the likelihood not only of that person paying you what they said they were going to pay you, but also them succeeding in the work that you guys do together.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, like, what kind of commitment do you create with your clientele if you're open to discussing that?
Mm. Okay, that's a very good question, Dave. I think the commitment itself, it's really about it's really about the two parties working together, right? Like you cannot just have one commitment at the other hand that the person is just like imagine like a dating, right? Commitment is also take two parties
Mhm.
to clap together in dating, right? If you just kind of like one person keep chasing the other person, but there is no commitment in between them, then it's not the go. Like that's exactly the same thing. I can see it's all about the connection between it both. Like if you have a good connection between both, the rapport, the trust, and that makes a good commitment itself. So I think that recipe of good commitment is really start from how that you see each other, what kind of value that you embody together, what kind of mutual understanding that you guys have, then those mutual understanding, those value that is going to bond that commitment together. So without that value, trust, and rapport, I don't think that commitment is going to work.
Mm. You know, one thing that I've noticed um, is that in today's market, and I don't know about you, but people they find it more difficult to trust
Yes.
because of the amount of claims and guarantees and offers and even experiences that they're having,
Yes.
which don't get me wrong, they may be positive or negative, but may in fact be not because of the program or service themselves, but because of the person not trusting themselves. And I'm wondering like what your opinion is on trust in the online coaching space these days.
Yes. Yes. That's another great point, Dave. Thank you for asking that. Because I also have one student. Actually, right now I'm coaching about 200 real estate uh in Indonesia that they're kind of struggling with the sales outreach, and I'm coaching them how to follow, how to network, putting people to the pipeline. And there's one big thing that also I'm overcoming right now inside the mindset of them, which is the trust. Like that trust, if you going to the social media the first time, you meet with strangers, you completely don't know who they are. The trust is not going to build instantly, right? Doesn't matter what they say. Like, yeah, I can guarantee you to get this by this amount and this time, like you meet all those people
Mhm.
every day that pitching straight off the bat and you ignore them, right? So the trust is
Yeah.
still is purely not just because what you say, but the trust is
Mhm.
really built about like that understanding each other. Like for me, the easiest, the fastest way to build trust in sales, I'm talking about in sales and conversations, is getting to understand the problem of the other person. Like that brought to empathy, right? Empathy is the strongest emotion in human force. Like will drive you to do something about it. But if you are not understanding that problem and you just suddenly jump into the product, that is just you care about that commission breath. You care about that result that you want more than the result for the person that you want. So that is the biggest factor where the trust is not built is because you put your own ego in front of them. But actually, if you put everything about them first, build that empathy, the trust will automatically be built by itself. That you're not forcing it,
Mhm.
right? That's I
But
think
do
the
you think it works both ways? Do you think it works both ways? Because like I was having a call with you know, someone today who we met on Facebook, and this person has an archetype that I've seen very often where they're very frustrated, they're very jaded by online coaching. Okay. And they feel like they've been burnt before in the past by a coach that had all these successful clients, but they weren't one of them. And
yes,
so now maybe they're in debt, maybe they just paid off the coaching, or, maybe they're just not that open to investing in themselves again. But
yes,
yet they still are, consuming the content. They're
yes,
still booking the calls. They still see the value in what a coach puts out. But yet, I would say the amount of people who are now educated on coaching and consulting has gone up. So, you
yes,
know, we're dealing with a much more sophisticated buyer these days that, as you said, can't be manipulated solely by words. They
Yes.
need to see the actions that follow up. And so that's why I think a lot of the like newbie coaches or struggling coaches, like they quit or they went back and got a job. And like if you actually talk to them, like a lot of them are just like working a 9 to 5, right? And they're
Yes.
just like doing this as like a side hustle, you
Yes.
know? Whereas the ones that are actually really successful, or at least they appear to be, like the Grant Cardones and the Jeremy Miners and the, Cole Gordons, like they've they've got an actual business model, and they also don't need to make the sale. They're
Yes.
not desperate to make the sale. And
Yes.
so, if someone is like kind of at that 0 to 5 5K a month stage right now, and they're feeling scared, they're feeling desperate to like make that next sale in their coaching business, what would you tell them?
Okay. That is very, 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 very hard question, Dave. I would say because not a lot of people actually can really make it becoming a coach, and they really can, because here's the thinking, right? When you're too focusing on the goal, which is making money, then you will forget about the delivery, which is adding value to other people, like giving what they should get as the clients, right? And that is the delicate balance in between. Like I still remember when I was just earning less than 5K a month, that it's still kind of like vague, that balance in between. Like, should I make more money first because it's more urgent, or should I make the delivery first because it will make more money at the future? But some people, that's really come back to the mindset, like when you desperate about it, the more you desperate about it, the more that the money is going away from you because you're really focusing on the goal, right? Well, actually, when you're setting the goal, you should forget it and you just focus on the purpose. Like that's why I always teaching people that don't focus on the outcome, but you focus on the purpose. It's the same attitude when you're doing the cold calls, right? When you're doing cold calls, have you ever made cold calls, Dave, before? Make some cold calls?
You know, it's a funny story, Andreas. I actually, I actually, before I went to Singapore, I moved back to Australia,
Mm.
and I was in Brisbane, Australia, chasing the Australian dream. And my friend Zane gave me a job to call up tradesmen from Australia, cold calling. And I couldn't understand a word that they said. So I went back to doing my, business development sales job, which it was more of like a door-to-door cold door-to-door selling, where I would go
Yes.
into hotels and hostels
Oh,
and
that's tough.
restaurants and convenience stores and bars in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Japan, Mexico, and the US. And I created over 400 partnerships with these local businesses.
Nice.
So yeah, actually, I have quite a little bit of experience with cold selling.
Nice, nice, nice. Love it, love it. Yeah, it's exactly the same like that, right? To get into your question just now, which is if we are too focusing on getting the money, which is let's say in the cold call itself, like I'm really focusing to book a call with this person when you're doing the cold call, the more that the person will go away from you, right? Because you're too focused to attach on the outcome. But when you just relax, you focus on the purpose, which is I just want to talk and get the truth if there's any needs for that, then it changed the situation, right? When you're dealing with those partnerships like commercials, restaurants, and shops all around the world, then when you're focusing on the relationship, building the good value with them, the conversation flow rather than you focusing on the outcome itself by getting the money from them, right? The things are changing, the conversation are shifting very different.
I also noticed that when I was able to build trust
Yes,
with the decision makers on a consistent basis, if I was crunching the numbers, I would close deals.
yes,
But when I didn't build trust, and that was kind of the end of my journey in that industry, and I
yes,
realized that at times there was nothing I could do to build trust
yes,
because of what the competition had built, and because of the experiences in the industry. The only way to build more trust would be to innovate the product or the service.
yes,
And so, you know, that's where I feel like people need to start thinking outside the box about how do they innovate their
Yeah.
product or their service or even themselves. And that is what will create the trust
Yes.
because people will see that you practice what you preach, that you follow up on, what you say you're going to do, and that you're actually a leader in your industry because any leader in their industry doesn't get left behind when changes are made.
Yes.
No, they're the ones that are at the forefront. They're the pioneers.
Yeah.
And so, just for example, like one thing that we're using in our business today is an AI lead generation tool for Facebook Messenger.
Yes.
And this is helping people to have more conversations without paying, the high fees of an appointment setter. And if they work them in tandem with the appointment setter, that can be even more powerful,
Yes.
depending on, where they're at in their business. But leveraging these tools right now, you can end up producing much more content, talking to many more people, having much more powerful, sales conversations and even presentations for that matter.
Yes.
So, I'm just wondering like what ways are you innovating and, what are your thoughts on like the AI in the sales game these days?
Yes. Yes. That's very good insight, Dave. Thank you for asking that because I also have tried couple of the softwares and like you mentioned, if eventually I was also using one of the software that using AI as the uh main power of that software, that how it can reach out to other people and qualifying them before even you sending the first automated message on Facebook, right? And that's so powerful because I know myself that that software already giving me, I think it's about 700% on my Facebook group increment since last month. So it's really give big boost, especially when you can reach out to more people, more eyeballs that you can get without you have to do it manually because you just literally don't have time to message one by one and just look at everyone's profile, right? To kind of qualify them in advance. So that AI is really a big leverage for you, especially you as a business owner, that your focus is not just only, you know, looking at the research and messaging people all day long, but how can you also delivering your stuff, right? As a coach or consultant. So AI is for sure is a big leverage. And especially like you mentioned, plus the tandem with the appointment setters is literally you can have the empathy, which is what the AI is kind of need monitoring on, plus the appointment setter is still that working together on it. It's really good combo, it's really leverage the time a lot and generating scalable result with it. So yeah, AI
Mhm.
is the next game changer in the sales industry for sure.
I know we only have a few more minutes, so I want to touch on, something that I've seen you be doing a lot recently, which is like going live
Yes.
and creating presentations. And I know you've got one coming up in April, so I'd love, to hear more about that. But what has been your experience in like really putting yourself out there in the most vulnerable way by
Yes.
going live and sharing your thoughts on sales and outreach and closing and connecting? Like, how has that changed your life?
Yes. So that is really about what I have been going with within these 8 years since I met the first mentor, the second mentor, and I learned a lot from them. And I implementing myself and I implement some strategy that I discovered myself, how outreach can be so powerful and it's generating more than a couple $1 million right now in revenue. And it's all about starting from the beginning, which is the triangle. Like if you think of a triangle, there is on the top of it, it's really about the pipeline, like how many people that you are talking to in a day. Like you mentioned, the AI. If you're leveraging AI, you can talk to a lot of people in a day. The ideal avatar that you have that is going to leverage a lot of value in how many people you put into the pipeline. And then second of the triangle is the activity, like how many activities that you do in a day, and AI will also leverage that. And number three is the skills. Like these skills is the most important part because doesn't matter how many activities that you do, that is the quantity, right? But if you don't have the quality of those quantities, that you're not going to make any difference in your activity. So I take example, I know someone in the industry that has been generating millions of dollars, but they have a software to reach out to creating 19 Facebook accounts and reach out to like or to reach out to like 1,000 accounts in a day, and they straightly directly going pitch straight off the bat. And maybe they can get one or two appointments in a day, but it's just literally without have any skills, right? It's just like activity. That's it. So that's why the big reason I want to have this live calls with a lot of people, because I want to educate, I want to coach a lot of people about, hey, when you're doing outreach, don't just pitch people. Like you need to understand the problem first, understanding about their situation. That's where the only way you can build trust, right? And you differentiate yourself with all other dominators in the marketplace. Then on that scenario, I want to give this value to a lot of as many people as possible by going live, by going to this workshop. If you are still kind of like in the outreach mode, getting to know other people, how can you ask the right question at the right time? Is I'm calling it the method of shut up and sell. Because a lot of people just talk too much, just pitch too much, and I say just shut up, listen, and that's how you sell. Actually, that methodology, I'm going to go live this early of April. That I'm going to share what are the strategies, the framework behind asking the right
Mm.
question at the right time, and not just talk too much, because that's literally how that you can make sale, even like with 10 20 people rather than 1,000 that only get one or two. Like the quality is the big differentiation on how that you can get appointments, how you can close the deals, right? By listening more, by how that you can ask the right question at the right time. So that's the April, early of April, actually 3rd of April. That's the workshop that I want to create, that I want to conduct. It is actually a lot of information in my Facebook group, that maybe later we can share the link, Dave, if someone wants to join my Facebook group to kind of understand what is the sales outreach process. And I go live daily on the my video to kind of give the understanding of that sales outreach and those triangle, how that they can have more valuable conversation with other people. Like
Hmm.
that is the meaningful way of sales, right? And I see that's the biggest differentiation in a niche, like compared to all the dominators and big names that they have different set of sales, and that how they teach the sales.
All right, we'll link you up in the comments below for Andreas's Facebook group. Maybe the last great Facebook group. I thought Facebook groups were a dying breed, but I think you're gonna bring them back to life. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Well, you know, I think that not only have people lost the ability to listen, which would greatly empower their sales abilities, but they're really struggling with asking the right questions because they're lazy.
Yes.
And asking the right questions will transform your life. It's one of the reasons why when I started my business, the first thing I did was start a podcast,
Yes.
was because I wanted to ask the right questions to the right people, to get to know them, to empower them, to be
Yes.
among their ranks.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it has given me the most amount of perspective of not only where I was at, but where I was going in my coaching career. So shut up and close, guys. Contact Andreas if you want to be a part of that workshop. And, Andreas, just to, bring us home today, what would you say is, your message to anyone out there who wants to take their sales game to the next level in 2024?
Yeah, definitely, Dave. Thank you for asking that. So the first thing that actually all salespeople want to know when they want to up their sales game is really about finding the problems. And the one thing that I mentioned about asking the right question at the right time is not only just about inbound sales, but how you do it in the outreach situation. Like just you mentioned, Dave, right? When you're reaching out to a lot of people, getting those 400 accounts in your cold game, what did you do? You're asking great questions, right, to them. Like without asking that question, it's impossible to get them trust you, impossible to get them as an account, right? Impossible to close them. So asking great questions when it's inbound is easy, because literally you're just handling the objections, how that they already pre-interested, they come in, they have intentions. But how can you ask the great questions when you are doing outreach? That is the second level. That's the next level, when somebody doesn't want to talk with you, but you still need to steal their first 30 seconds. How do you steal their 60 seconds? By asking those great questions, right? At the beginning of the conversation, at the middle of the conversation, and how that you can get those appointments and close. Like those are the different game. The purpose of the question is to know the truth. So if you want to up your sales game, first thing first, get to know the truth. Do they have the problem that you can solve? Do they have the needs that you can solve? Can you qualify them in a manner that you can solve the problem, or maybe not? And just be attached from the outcome, focusing on the purpose. Like, what is the real purpose of sales? It's literally about solving problem, right? Like sales is just literally about matching those two things, get married, and okay, the problem solved, right? But without that understanding, that trust, and that solving problem, you cannot close anything. I can guarantee that. So if you're kind of struggling, my message is if you're kind of struggling right now to close more deals or increase the close ratio, getting more show up rate, like ask yourself first, are you asking the right question at the right time? And second, are you solving the problem that literally people are having? And are they aware of their problem? Like that is the purpose of the question. When you can do those two things, I can guarantee your sales game is going to the next level. It's just literally what it is.
Boom. If you want to close the deal, you got to get to the truth.
Gotta get to the
And yeah, man, I think that you've touched on a lot of really powerful points today. And so how can people reach out to you on Facebook or on Instagram?
Oh yeah, definitely. So maybe you can tag me in the Facebook and in the live right now. So I think I give my profile, so I'll find the Facebook. So you can
I'll do
do
it.
the
I'll do
Facebook.
it after the podcast where I'll
Sure,
link you up in the
sure.
comments.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I hope that this is the first of many, and I think we've got our next Malaysia's next Jeremy Minor on on our hands here. And I think that more people need to invest in sales training that will actually get them results so that then they can be able to invest more in their business and
yes,
the things that really matter and in their family and into, their goals and their dreams. Because a lot of guys out there, they want to create a retreat, they want to build a home for charity, they want to travel the world with their partner, with their kids, and they're not able to do that right now because they're not closing deals. They're not
yes,
making money.
yes,
And why is that? Because well, they think they're good at listening, but they're really not. They're not building trust with their audience. They're not doing outreach consistently. Well,
yeah,
if you guys are struggling with that stuff, reach out to us. I think that, either Andreas or I might be able to help you. So it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you on the podcast today. And I look
yes. Thank
forward
you,
to
Dave.
see, where the year takes both of us.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. I'll see you very soon.
Right.